This is another episode of Done Deal. My name is Oren. I'm the CEO of Pitch Anything, a major company with 5 employees. I have here on my right my new friend Hoby, who is the CEO of SkullCandy, and he has 300 plus employees growing at a 15-20% pace a year. And I think what we want to talk about here a little bit today is the difference between a 10-person company and a 500-person company, because that's what we all want as entrepreneurs. The success of fast growth, high margin, be number 1 or number 2 in our market, getting the financial press to report on us, and lots of excitement around our business. But that comes with pain points, it comes with difficulties, and it comes with risk as well. So, Hoby, welcome.
Pleasure to be here. I appreciate it. I think the number one is, though, with 300 employees versus 10, we don't have a bunch of Ducatis back in the back like you do walking through. So I don't know. You got some good stuff going on here.
We have 2 Ducatis per employee. So that's the way I look at it.
Pleasure to be here. It's fun.
Good. First of all, your background. Let's do that first. How people want to be the CEO of large, multi-million-dollar, high-profile, fast-growing companies. How do they get there other than starting it?
Sure. Well, I don't know that I'm the perfect example of how you get there, but my background was, pretty boring, to be honest, from the beginning. I was a JD MBA and, worked at a big law firm and worked 20 hours a day for about 6 years, just absolutely doing everything I could do to crush it. And did that for, like I say, kind of 5 or 6 years, and then ended up joining Volcom initially as their general counsel of all things.
Yeah.
And, did that and just kind of kept working my way up. I was the guy in the senior huddle when we were starting.
Chipping away.
Just chipping away.
Yeah.
It was the part of, I guess the rule I always have is, hey, if someone else doesn't know how to do it better than you, raise your hand and go do it. And so I spent a lot of time sitting with our executive team, and they'd go, oh, hey, we got to go figure out e-commerce. Anybody know how to do that? Everybody'd look around the room and go, nope. I go, okay, I'll go figure it out. People go, I guess we should expand internationally. Anyone know how to do that? Nope. All right, I'll figure out how to go do that. So, was at Volcom and just, kind of just chipped my way up doing operational things. Started to get more and more just on, the brand strategy and what was going on. And we just had a ton of fun growing it from when I started. I think it was a little under $100 million, and then we grew it to about $350 million over 6 or 7 years. And ended up making a decision at the time to sell the company to PPR, which is the group that owns Gucci and Yves Saint Laurent and Puma. Yeah. It was a great transaction for the company. And so stayed on for a little while to help on with the integration of that. But after a while, decided I was going to take a little time off and, go enjoy some of it, spend a little time with my family. And, a funny thing happened. A good friend of mine was the CEO at Hurley. And he was promoted to be the president of the affiliate brands at Nike.
Yeah.
And after I was, kind of playing around for a little while, and my wife and I wanted to go travel and play, he said, hey, Hoby, you want to come up and see what's going on up in Portland? And I said, no, I'm on, sabbatical and hanging out. And I got up to Nike campus, and I don't know, have you been up on Nike's campus before?
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's like being back in college again, right? It's amazing. And I remember calling my wife.
It's like a healthy Google.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? Yeah. It's funny. I remember the first time when I went up there for an interview, first going up there, and I was talking to the person who was walking me around. It was a fairly senior person. I was just like, what's going on? Like, people are playing, soccer during the middle of the day. And they said, Phil Knight's big kind of aha part was if we were going to have the most creative sports, and not just sports, but company around and going to be there for long term, it had to really bring out the creativity in people. And he had a strong belief that people were their most creative in college, and so he made a campus that was around sports, facilities, fields, bars, and restaurants.
So I have some other different questions, but I just want to call time out and get your opinion.
Yeah.
So we're a finance shop, right? We really, you saw the beach is, 100 yards that way. But we're in finance. We don't sell, surfboards, and it's funny. There's a skateboard company there.
I saw that coming in. Surfboard and skateboard.
Yeah, and then the next company over manufactures surfboards, but we do finance. And so it was just not an inclination. We get out in the parking lot and ride skateboards or mountain bikes or go surfing and everything. You guys are in that lifestyle, so it makes sense that you live it. Nike's in that lifestyle, so it makes sense that they go kick soccer balls or throw frisbees or whatever. What advice could you give us and people like us who are in technology or in finance or in manufacturing to get that little lifestyle piece going? Because it's not natural.
Yeah.
You know, just free advice.
Yeah, totally.
How do we bake that in?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big part of it is, right, you can work at a lifestyle company and have it be terrible. Or you can work at a finance, a law firm, you know, whatever it is and have it be great. And I think a big part of that, it's around culture, around what you make it. Yeah.
By the way, this is a veiled insult. Like, that's your fault. If your people aren't doing it, then it's the guy at top.
I mean, I think it's the guy at the top, you know, or gal at the top that's doing it. But I mean, I think, you know, there's an inherent piece, right, in a lifestyle business that I think it does come from passion and it comes from a lifestyle that you love. But at the same time, you know, I remember working in a big law firm and figuring out a way to work on, you know, at the time it was the Mossmos of the world, you know, and the DC Shoes of the world and the Oakleys of the world, you know, that were really fun to go in and work with. And you still did the same things of, you might be working 20 hours, but hey, at lunch, let's go figure out a way to go get a run together. Hey, you know, let's go get an early morning surf together. And that's a state of mind that you just do.
I think that's right. So we have you here, you're having these experiences and you're learning at scale.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I try and do for people is I go to meetings to try and raise $10 million or $50 million, whatever it is. And I'm doing selling at scale or high stakes.
Yeah.
I'm trying to give people a window into what that experience is like.
Yeah,
what if we can take it back to 10, 15, 50 person companies and think about this idea of be bigger than you are? What are there steps or lessons? And I'm not saying you have them, but is there anything we can give people that you're learning at scale that could be a process or a blueprint for how to become bigger than you are, as you said? Because if I'm running a 10-person company, a 15-person company, I'm trying to make payroll, I'm trying to sign key accounts. You know, you've been there. How can we think bigger than we are if we're busy and just trying to win accounts and keep the wheels on the bus?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting to say because I was actually lucky enough to go talk to a bunch of CrossFit box owners last weekend.
There's a good example of keeping the wheels on the bus.
So it was right in there, you know. And I mean, those are all people who have, you know, say call it between 1 and 10 employees who are going, I actually did go do something I was passionate about. I gave up my day-to-day to go do it. And here are the things, I'll tell you what I kind of told them to some degree when we were in there, you know, and it was, you know, number one, you know, we talked about it a little bit before we started talking, but when you're a 10-person organization, when you're a 1-person organization, that's when you set the culture for the next, you know, 30 years.
Smart.
Right? Yeah. So that part that goes, I think a lot of people wash that under the rug and go, oh, you know, kind of culture, smulture. But you go, you are the only person as a leader that gets to set that culture, right? So you get to be able to do that. So number one, it's take the time, set the culture. What are those things that you stand for, your values that you have, your bonding experiences that you do internally? Like that would be number one. And maybe there's a little bit of a state of mind of being smaller. You know, but people ask me all the time, whether it's in investor meetings or otherwise, you know, who's the competitor that you fear the most or that you worry about? And they expect that I'm going to say, you know, one of our traditional competitors. And the biggest thing is if you're a company of 1 or a company of 10, you are the biggest competitor to the biggest companies out there in the world because the pace of innovation that you can move at today, the ability to do a Kickstarter, to just call somebody up to make a product, to make whatever it is, has made you the biggest competitor to the biggest companies in the world. And like just keeping that in your mind, because I think a lot of people actually rush to, I'm small and so I'm at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
That may have been true 30 years ago. That was certainly true 100 years ago. But today it is not an access to capital. It is not an access to factories. It is not an access to IP. All of those things move so fast. Don't try to be big. You know, I remember, I mean, this is actually a very big company CEO in Silicon Valley, and we were running together the other morning, and we were just talking about different things, and this thing he said, every time I look back and I think of big companies, I try to do the opposite of what they're doing, right? And I think as a small company, you always have that rush of, it is the, oh, what's, you know, if it was lifestyle, what's Nike doing? If it's in tech, it's what Google's doing, what's Intel doing, and I think it's almost, I was like, yeah, there's some interesting learnings there, but remember, you're gonna beat them. That's what's great about being small. They're now big. You don't need it. So I think just keeping that piece is like, don't try to act big. Try to act small. The thing that I guarantee you keeps the most big company CEOs up is moving too slow. It's too bureaucratic. Is it getting the right idea? When you're small and you're focused and you're attacking, man, keep it that way. Be small and nimble. Like, that's an advantage.
And so what do companies do? They're a small company, and our business is capital raising, right? And so you have lots of access to capital.
Yeah.
People call you every day and they go, we could do this whether senior or mezz or equity financing or recap or hybrid securitization.
Sure.
You have capital is not an issue, but we hear all the time people say, hey, capital's not a problem. There's access to capital is no longer an issue in today's world. But you got a lot of small companies out there who are struggling to raise money.
Yeah.
It's almost like guys and girls going out at night and going, oh, there's nobody out there for me. So the guys are going, oh, I can't meet any, awesome girls, and the girls are going, there's no good guys. And so I hear capital sources and I hear companies, but for smaller companies, 15 to 50 people. If you remember those experiences, why in the world would somebody today not be able to find the money they're looking for?
I think my opinion on that is, to your point, there's unlimited capital out there. I mean, if you talk to the PE folks right now, the VC folks, they're saying, I can't get enough good deals. They're not going, oh, I don't have enough money to go fund good deals. So to your point, it's not is the capital there. Right. It's is it being allocated, correctly, and am I being seen? I think to that point, on it. So I think a big one on that is, one, it is crowded to go get capital. That's true. And you'll hear for sure, the Kickstarter stories, but also, you've got to put on a good show. But the thing I love about Kickstarter, and you're closer to the finance piece than me on this, is it goes, what gets seen? A really clear idea that's not, we could do these 10 things really interestingly. It's, here's the one way that we can completely change something that solves a problem or makes something better. And I think it's that piece that so many people, start to lose that just really, I don't want to call it small vision, it's the, tip of the spear vision. And I think that's what gets funded, when I see it out there. And even, we get pitched all the time by people right, hey, buy my company, buy this. So we see stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And when you see people come in that have that really clear, like, here is the thing that I have, and I'm really excited about it, and you see that in people too, then, man, those people are really interesting. When it's, hey, here are 15 things that might work, kind of like, it doesn't really seem like, you know exactly where you're headed. So
you're in retail.
Yeah.
It's a tough business, lots of competition, as you said. When you look at your competitor board, you got Apple up on there.
Yeah.
But retail is difficult, and what strikes me about retail today is absolute clarity. So what are the lessons, again, you're learning at scale for how you launch products and tie them into the brand and achieve? People know exactly what they're getting.
Yeah.
They know what the product is.
Yeah.
How do you say no to all the product choices and features and ways of marketing and achieve that, slick of the bullet, single pull of the trigger, absolute clarity on product and brand? Well, is there any process around that, or it's all up in your head and you're doing it?
No, it's brutally hard. It's definitely not all up in my head, but you go back to Apple, right? And you go, I think that's one of the companies that actually has done it better than anyone else in the world, where it's saying, hey, we'll put all our products on one table, you can see them. So there is that clarity. So I think they actually do a pretty good job. I'll give an anecdote a little bit to this as we think about it. So we've done some interesting consumer studies and working with some other brands. And so forth. And one of the things we found, to your point, on a crowded retail sector is a consumer in a lot of different places will take less than 10 seconds, and on average about 8 seconds, to make a decision of, am I going to look at your product or am I done with it? And so if you're going down a headphone aisle or an apparel aisle or a shoe aisle or whatever.
You got a full 8 seconds, that's awesome.
You got, call it 6 seconds. And that's someone who came in and actually looked at your product, so actually picked the box up, looked at it and went, is that what I want or not? And if you don't have them in that 6 seconds, they put it back and they go on to the next thing in there. And so I think it's really keeping that in your mind that just goes, man, if I don't have that one message that they want within 6 seconds, I don't get them to turn around the box and look on the back and go, oh, and by the way, it has these other 5 features and benefits, et cetera. So to me, I guess that's the way we always think about it.
Yeah.
Is it's like, what is that clarity when someone walks down the aisle, and they see the box and they see a whole other row of stuff. I got 6 seconds to go, here's the feature, benefit, or even if it's just color, look, graphic, feel that they have around it, or they've moved on. And that's kind of how we think about that clarity piece.
So does that excite you or depress you that you have such a short window of time to do such a huge amount of work?
Yeah, I think it's actually great because I think it goes back to our product folks. And you go, hey, we're going to create this and it's going to be amazing. What is that story that our consumer's going to love? And by the way, we can't shift off of that.
Yeah.
That's it. And so I think it's that opportunity again that goes to the clarity piece. It doesn't mean you can't have the secondary, tertiary benefits, which they do turn the package, but you've got to have it. And I think from a product person, going, that's the clarity of engineer what we need to go build. They go, rad, we'll go make that incredible.
I think you're saying the same thing in retail that I'm saying in finance, is people got to want it, and the features, that's the features are the reason why they do it, but they got to want it. And it's your job in a very short amount of time to make people want the product or yourself or the company, and then but you're never going to sell, not never, that's not fair. It's hard to sell a product on features in today's world. You got to sell it on essence and desire and tap into the sort of the primordial response of people going, I don't know, I can't explain it to you, I don't care about the features, I want it.
Yeah.
That's right for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So, here's how we think about it, right? You go, if you just think about your brain, you go, there's a rational part, there's an emotional part, and there's a cultural part of how you buy stuff, right? What you just hit on is the vast majority of brands that are successful win on the emotional part, right? Yeah. You don't go buy a Patagonia coat because it necessarily has all the features. You go, oh, I love that company gives back, is environmental, et cetera. That's my number one. Oh, and by the way, is that going to keep me warm? Yeah, okay, that'll keep me warm.
And the features justify the price.
I'll take it.
So you got desire, and then you got price, and then you have features, and the features justify the price? Is that how it works?
I think most of the times, like you said, people come in, if you look at brands today, people need to love your brand, right? And that's the emotional part. And so I think once you get people on the emotional, and that's not a bad thing, by the way. I think some people look at that and they're like, oh, that's just marketing. No, that's what you stand for as a company. And then so you have that piece, and then you have to come back to the rational piece.
So how does an app company?
How do I do that?
An app company is only features.
Yeah.
How do these guys have a brand that stands for anything? You got a little 16 by 16 pixel logo. How do these guys get a brand? Or should we just feel sorry for them?
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a question on that, right? Because I think everyone has a brand, no matter what. Right? If I say, if I go Uber, do you have a sense of how you feel about that company? I'm going to guess you sort of do, right?
Yeah.
Whether that's because it was in the press, whether it's even based on their ID and their app, whether it's based on, whatever they have. I think that when people talk about, oh, I can't have a brand, I just don't think that's true. I think anytime you're touching a consumer, and a consumer doesn't have to be just a consumer brand, it can be a B2B brand, et cetera. But I think it's our job as founders, right, to have part of that be, okay, what's the feeling when that app pops up? Does someone go, oh, I feel good about that brand? Take Google as an example.
Yeah.
Google, at the end of the day, right, when you look at it, is an algorithm search engine. There could not be a more boring thing that I could think of in my life.
Well, my job, finance, would be slightly more boring, but we could argue about it. Yes.
You know what I mean, though? When you think about that, what has Google done when you look at every best employer list, when you look at what are the most innovative companies in the world, when you look at who's doing good in the world?
Now, are they doing it on purpose? Are they, you think they're purposefully doing this branding?
I think they know their brand.
Yeah.
But I think that brand, and I don't know Sergey and Brin well enough to be like, oh, okay, hey, what was in your thought as you were founding Google? But I think there is something we said, even on the part where it was do no evil.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you can say, oh, that was, BS marketing. But that was way before they were thinking about, being however big their market cap and revenue is now. So I think there is that piece, no matter who you are as an app, I think you do have a feel, to all of that. And I think especially with today's consumer, and I know youth culture better than I know, what 40 and 50 and 60-year-olds are doing. But I think when you're talking youth culture today, man, the youth identify with, I want to feel good about that brand when I buy it. And we'll make a decision to go, if I don't feel good about what you stand for, even if it doesn't have that rational trade-off, I'll take emotional over rational, because I like the way when I put it on, when I use it, even if it's just clicking it to go Uber, that felt good to me.
Yeah.
You know, when I did it.
Just to frame this out, I mean, this is awesome. I know we have to let you go, but I have two more things I have to hit. So again, why this is so important to me, and I want to broadcast this out to people, is this is not sort of the opinion of a startup. This is, we're talking to you and you're doing this at scale. And if you screw up the things we're talking about here, a lot of problems, and you'll know about it immediately. Yeah. People, your bosses will talk to you, the market will talk to you, and it will impact thousands or tens of thousands of lives. So this stuff really, when I see people doing this stuff, in large companies at scale, at the top market, it brings more weight, gravitas, and seriousness to it. So this is awesome. When just to talk about your own business a little bit, when you think about, we talk about brand and culture and mission, but if we go down to the actual technology, what is going to happen in the audio field, whatever the industry, that piece of it, because we talk about lifestyle, we talked about a lifestyle brand, a cultural brand, the intersection of athletics, action sports, fashion, but if we actually talk about the technology, while we have you here, I'm very interested to understand where that's going. Where's the technology of audio listening going to be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now?
And I'm glad you're bringing it up even in the context of, I think, lifestyle. If we go, hey, from a brand perspective, that lifestyle and culture are how people love you and how they feel when they put you on. But you've got to have a great product value proposition, that you give to people. So I think, where's audio going? I think the biggest part is, man, there's never been a more exciting time to be in audio. It's the first time you start to see biometrics in earphones. It's the first time you start to see, having audio and software start to come together to set things like EQ settings. It's the first time, like if you think about gaming as an example, right, that every kid in the world is doing, gaming and audio and creating those immersive experiences are just starting, right? Like with virtual reality, even as an example, what do you think of? You think of vision, but okay, how does that apply to audio? So, there's a lot going around on innovation. I think the biggest part of it, though, that it comes back to, is audio is such, if you think about our senses, audio came before sight, as an example. And so audio is really deeply based just in us from, a purely biological perspective. And so I think it's that tie that brings audio, with bringing that human part to it. Like I think you start to see in tech so often, tech for tech's sake, but bringing the part that goes, no, audio is something so deeply rooted in us. It's one of the keys to emotion. It's one of the keys to learning. It's one of the keys to how we perceive our world. And you start to bring in some of the tech to that, and it gets really exciting. So whether it's virtual reality audio type stuff to, biometrics in sports to, the neuroscience of audio right now is really interesting of, what I can make your brain start to feel based upon playing different music for you. That's so deeply rooted, in what's going on. And I think the appreciation of that's going to be really exciting for the future.
So you guys are doing, thank you. You guys are doing primary research, or do you just
both.
I'm interested. Yes, you're actually, so how should a company think about how much to spend on primary, if you're a brand, you're in lifestyle, how should you think about what to spend to make sure you have intellectual property and technology and something that's valuable in-house rather than just white labeling or outsourcing?
So for us, we always go, hey, three things that we'll always invest in. 1, innovation. 2, demand creation. 3, people. Everything else that we can cut cost out of at every corner, we do it. And not, because we're, miserable people, because we want to take all that money and put it back into innovation, demand creation, and people all the time.
So if you're selling facilities management and you're not the right company to get a good contract.
Not going to get a good contract from. So for us, we take those 3 things and every single thing we do, that's what we put it back into. So from an innovation perspective, there's a saying I love, right? Which is everyone always comes in and is like, oh, what do you think the future is going to be? What's the future of audio going to be, et cetera? And I love the part that goes, hey, best way to know the future is create it. you know, when you can go do that, you have a remarkable head start on everybody.
Yeah.
So that's what we try to do.
So this has been really inspirational. You know, before we started talking, we said I don't do motivation, right? And I'm not interested in sort of motivational memes. But this for me has been motivational in the essence of it. So I really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Okay. Yeah.
Cheers.
Great. All right.